It's
Yeah.
crazy to me.
It's, what he got from the recommendation was the ability to write one or two what they call a spec script for
Sure,
Tales of the Gold Monkey. So you don't have a job. You're just some guy, and you sit in your living room and you write a script.
sure.
But he at least got it read, is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And because they liked what he wrote, that really led to him getting the job. But you're right. It's crazy, and it's not that different from going back and you look at how Cletus Mackert started,
Mm-hmm.
and you got a guy who runs an advertising agency saying, "Hey, can you write two more verses in a bridge? And I'm going to take this down to my buddy at the radio station."
It's crazy.
And it would be crazy today.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it could happen that easily.
It's just nice to hear because it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you hear the luck part and you forget the rest, but it's luck. But then unless you can apply some skill to that luck, you're not going to get anywhere. So it's kind of great that he found this weird calling that he probably didn't know he had.
Yeah, that's right. Luck to get in the door, talent to stay there. And he definitely was a talented guy for sure.
Boy, did you off of this first album? I know, like you say, you like the second one best, and I'm gonna have to pick up a copy now, but based on that recommendation.
I'll get it to you. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Do you have a favorite track off of the first album?
I do. I do. But I like the CB Lingo Dictionary, which is the next to last track on side 2, and this is where he goes through for a novice and tries to explain what all of these different crazy. With this jargon and terminology that's being used on the CB. And I like the way it's put together. I think that one is truly finding in places. Of course, I know that he was a novice, and he has this great way of sounding like this patient, almost patronizing guy trying to explain this to a newbie, and he's a newbie. But I think because he was a newbie is why he was able to see the humor in some of these terms they were using. And just come at it with fresh eyes. So that's definitely my favorite track. I do think the White Knight holds up pretty well, and there's a reason that was a hit. And then I am personally featured in track 3 on side 1, "Dad, I Gotta Go."
I was wondering.
Which is
Okay.
the lament of every father on a road trip, and we're just starting to make time, and we're just catching up to the pack, and there comes that voice from the back seat, "Dad, I gotta go. I gotta go." And so I played a role in that one.
Oh,
I have to have a little personal affinity for it.
Of course. That's a friggin' delight. Now, what about on the second album? Do you have a particular favorite off of that, or a few favorites off of that one?
Oh, there's several good songs on that. I like a couple of the serious ones. There's one called "Poppin' 'Em," which is about what it sounds like. It's about the fact that truckers, to do the job they have and get where they need to be and drive these 18-hour shifts, are popping speed left and right, and kind of being addicted to that. There's a song called "Bear Blue" about a state trooper who's a friend of the truckers and is murdered, actually.
Oh, my God.
The truckers all track down the murderer and avenge him. But I like the music to it. The comedy ones, There's a really funny one called the Banana Bowl, which is about a university that completely gives up academics and puts all its money into getting the football team to the Banana Bowl because their polling shows that's the only reason anybody wants to go there is cheer on the football team. There's one called "What Are They Teaching My Boy Floyd," which is about this old Southern guy who doesn't like that they're teaching sex education in the school. That's pretty funny.
That's pretty great. Oh my goodness. I'm also now tempted to, if we get to connect here in Los Angeles sometime, I mean, your voice is on the record. I had Bob Newhart's son sign a record that Bob Newhart mentioned him on. I feel like I need to have you sign my copy of The White Knight, if only because
Absolutely.
You're on the darn thing. I mean, come on. That's too much fun.
Oh, I know. I'm the inspiration for that song. I don't think my voice is actually on there.
Oh, okay.
They didn't record me saying, "Dad, I gotta go."
Well, it's the same.
I'll still sign it anyway.
It's the same. Bob Newhart's son is not on that album. He's only mentioned. It's the first time he's mentioned. It's just as good to me. My goodness. Now, I'm curious if he's a theater guy. Theater people, I don't want to generalize too much, can be very serious, but I'm curious if there was what kind of comedy there was around the house, if you guys had any comedy albums floating around.
That's an interesting question. He was not a serious guy all the time. He used to joke about his dramatic phase when he was younger, before I was born, when he was in London, and wanted to be the next Orson Welles, and took himself very seriously. By the time I came along, he didn't take himself and things as seriously, and he was a delight to be around and was funny all the time. He wasn't one, honestly, to listen to other people's work that much.
Okay.
He was kind of busy doing what he was doing, and now I had comedy albums when I was a kid. I had Steve Martin, Comedy Is Not Pretty, and I had Robin Williams and Gallagher. I used to listen to that stuff like crazy, but it didn't come from my dad.
Okay.
He just wasn't one to. He didn't, in anything he did, really draw on influences. He had his own kind of thing he wanted to do or say, and that's what he did. And otherwise, he spent his leisure time. He was much more likely to just watch sports or be with family or go out to an event than to really listen to other people's comedy.
That's interesting.
Now, I will say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
No,
interrupt
you're fine.
Having said that, it's not as though he didn't have influences, because he did love George Carlin. And he used to talk about George Carlin all the time. And he told me he used to have tapes of George Carlin, that I don't know how he got them. So we didn't have those albums laying around the house, but he was definitely influenced by George Carlin, Richard Pryor. He used to like to watch the old VHS of Richard Pryor live on the Sunset Strip.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well, I mean, if you're gonna pick some stuff to listen to and be influenced by, those are the greats. I mean, that's
absolutely
nothing wrong with that. What was there? Now, this is something I've never had the opportunity to ask somebody about. Did you ever have moments as a kid where you had the opportunity to brag on your dad and nobody believed you? It feels like that'd be one of those things. Where like my dad had a gold record. I mean, like, I'm just curious if that ever came up.
That's a great question. As a kid today, at 50 years old, sure, I still try to brag.
Still do. Good.
and people are incredulous. It's not that they don't believe me, but it's kind of like you. It sounds like one of those made-up stories, only in America in the 1970s kind of thing.
Yeah.
And people certainly, I've not run into many people who have heard of him or remember him or say, "Oh my God, your dad was Cletus Maggard."
Right.
I've done the same thing as far as him writing for Magnum, and there was a time that was a big deal. There was a time, certainly in the 80s when it was on TV, and even in the 90s, you could say my dad was for Magnum PI, and people would really treat me as though I had done something special. I find that today I'm surprised how many people I meet that if it comes up in conversation and I mention it, they say, "What's Magnum PI?" So it just goes to show you that time marches on. Even Tom Selleck and his mustache and his Ferrari can be forgotten eventually over time. And certainly when it comes to Cletus Maggard, I think for people it's a curiosity. I think they really like the story and find it interesting, and think it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So it was cool for me.
Of course it would be. I can only imagine if I could brag about some stuff that my dad did, but if my dad had a weird comedy album when I was a kid, I feel maybe I'd hate comedy albums out though now. Who knows? Like it might be, that might have been my rebellion, but that's this is so great. I'm just looking. I'm looking at some other things that I found too. Like there's this person selling a poster on eBay, which actually to me looks like probably a page out of a magazine, but it is a Cletus Maggard poster, making sure to remind you that he was voted Best New Male Artist by Billboard in 1976.
Best New Artist. He was. Can you believe that? We have that. We have the award.
Do you? Great.
They didn't televise the CMA awards back then.
Right.
But he won the Billboard, but also the CMA Best New Artist in 1976. So good. Unbelievable.
I love it. And like I said, it is one of those things too, where it's like I feel like if you get recognition from a group, even if you were picking, and these people know, they knew what they were getting into. These people didn't think he was necessarily crapping on them. But it's interesting that you might not be interested in country, but all of a sudden you get this recognition. You're like, well, there's probably something to it. There's probably something to this many people liking what I did and buying it. I mean, it's a simple
I think
transaction.
absolutely. Yeah, he responded to the fact that they liked what he did, and he responded really to that whole culture. And like I said, we ended up with a CB and reached a point where he didn't want to drive anywhere if he didn't get on his CB.
Yeah.
They're an anachronism in American history and culture now, but in a way they're not, because now we have our phone and we have the internet and we have Instagram and everything else and all these ways that people connect that didn't exist in 1976. And this was a way you could be tooling around in your car and connect with someone you never met.
Yeah.
And be as anonymous as you wanted to be, just like an online poster or a troll or a name you want to use on Twitter. It kind of was a forerunner to that ability to just reach out and connect, which is interesting. And I think he really took to that.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of all the work he did? And I love that he could have such a varied career. Is there one thing he was most proud of that really, really, like, he kind of set, that he could hang his hat on, as it were?
Yeah, I would say there were two things. He was proud of some of the work that he did on Magnum.
Mm-hmm.
It was, Magnum, look, at a lot of levels was, the quintessential 80s just cop show, and not always the greatest piece of art in the world, and he would be the first person to tell you that.
Sure.
But because of his roots in England, he became sort of the house writer for the Higgins character, for John Hillerman.
Okay.
And if you are sitting around at night watching a rerun and you see one comes on that features Higgins very prominently,
mm-hmm.
you can almost be assured that he wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wrote a couple episodes that he was super proud of on Magnum, one called Solo Flight, where Magnum is trapped at the top of a mountain, like under an old aircraft, and kind of goes through this whole process of thinking about his life. And he was really proud of that. Outside of Magnum, he played many roles in the theater, did many plays, but his longest running, the one he did the most, was The Man of La Mancha, which is the play about based on the Don Quixote by Cervantes. And he collected Don Quixote statuettes.
Wow.
Right now I'm looking at an oil painting that was done of him in full costume.
Oh my
Don
God.
Quixote.
Oh, that's amazing.
His spirit, you used the word mercurial earlier to describe what happened with the White Knight, and it's a great word because he was mercurial. He didn't just kind of do one thing for a long, long time. He did all these little things in short bursts and dramatically and wildly successfully, and then just fade away and then go to the next thing. And I think he very much identified with the character of Don Quixote.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of just kind of being out there, maybe not in the right time, but not giving up on your crazy dream, even if it's out of step. And so, yeah, I think he was really proud of how many other performances that he acted and directed in of Man of La Mancha. And I tell you, it's funny to me to listen to him sing in this nasally southern slang on Cletus Maggard, because he was a classically trained singer with a beautiful voice,
mm-hmm.
and he sang The Impossible Dream from Man of La Mancha just, in a way that would absolutely quiet the house and make chills go down your spine.
Are there any recordings of that around? Because I got to tell you, oh, damn it, because I got to tell you, that's like, boy, oh boy, I would love to hear. Oh, damn it! Well, I'm gonna do some research. You think
you would? I mean, I have
of course,
memories, but I would love to hear it again. And it was the 70s,
mm-hmm.
the early 70s at that, really, when he was really doing La Mancha.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the kind of thing where you certainly didn't pull out your phone and say, I'm gonna take a video and put this on YouTube. And why would we have a tape recording? They just didn't think about that.
Yeah.
There might have been a recording at one point, but if it ever existed, it's gone.
Yeah. He's got two. So he's got on IMDb. He's got 2 actor credits. They seem like they're smaller bit parts. One's in a BBC show, and the other one is something called Armchair Theater. And what I love is that he had these opportunities on TV, but his biggest ones were in writing, but that he still held on to Don Quixote, which of course you would. I mean, why would